We take a look at the best marks since the 1st of December. And you see where the Pacers are. Like the Bucks, kind of forgotten before the season. It was supposed to be the Celtics and the Sixers and maybe Toronto. But what about what these two in Indiana and Nate McMillan have done? And what about what it would mean after Wednesday night? Tough moment early. Oladipo, second quarter. Watch here.
Hey.
Right knee. You're going to take a look at a couple of replays.
Just gave out.
When there's no contact, he gets diagnosed serious right knee injury. Surgery expected. Reports are he will be out for the season. That is not anything that's been officially announced yet. MRI set for Thursday, but no contact immediately, Smitty, right, Ryan? You guys look at it as athletes, you know that's a big problem.
Yeah, and you know some players, and been watching Oladipo. When you start having him waving for the trainers to come, and there's no movement, and players, come over to try to help you up, and he doesn't want you to help him up.
Yeah.
It's probably serious.
He's got such a strong will that you could see they're obviously trying to stay positive. Going to be difficult. We'll hear from the Pacers after the game. Let's talk about what went on during the game. Thaddeus Young, often speaking of forgotten for what he does in terms of culture and core with this team, lead 4. Raps, though, under a minute to go. Danny Green, he was part of that trade too.
Yes, indeed. And you see him knocking down clutch shots for them, and he's definitely a 3-and-D guy.
Bogdanovich, Thaddeus, flotation device. Mouse in the house, Lowry. Young at 23 and 15. Lead 3. Last chance for Toronto. They're down 3. Danny Green.
Oh, he was
got
open.
The look.
Give him the ball.
That's what I'm saying, right? I know he misses that shot, but the pass was
gosh.
count too late.
Got a little tight, man.
Yes.
Oh, God.
You shooters.
I'm just saying, you got to get it to him a little quicker. He was open 2 steps before he got it.
Indiana wins their 32nd game of the year. That's the good news. But the loss way bigger than anything in the standings in terms of Oladipo.
Watching, our best player go down, but not just because he's our best player, because he's one of the best people to be around. And I mean, just his personality, how positive he is, and you just hate to see that happen to him. You don't want that to happen to anybody, but you just hate to see that happen to him, and it just sucks right now.
That kid has a beautiful spirit about him, and he is probably one, or if not, the most positive guy on this team. And he has always been one that try to lift his team and lift us. We got to lift him now, and we got to support him now, and in this time.
Very difficult. Obviously, a lot of love around the association for Victor Oladipo. LeBron, with his prayers via Twitter. Ironically, when you think about a guy not only who understands his injury, traded for each other, prayers up from PG-13. Ryan, when you sit there on the outside, and I often say this when this happens, it doesn't matter if it's the last guy on the bench in any sport or a great player. It always is a bigger story when it is a great player. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. But to see what this guy's done with his career and how he's maximized what the Pacers have given him, which is basically the keys, go ahead and drive this thing, it makes it even tougher to watch what happened tonight.
When I tell you nobody expected Victor Oladipo to have the success nobody could have seen this coming after that year in OKC. Then the way they take LeBron and company and the Cavaliers to a Game 7 and come back rolling the next season to where you looked at that playoff picture, Smitty, and you didn't count them out, and you really started to cheer for Oladipo and believe in what's going on there. So, I mean, your heart just has to go out. This is one of the real unfortunate moments in parts of sports.
For me, Ryan and Casey, what I love about it, you talked about it, was the best player as a guy, the 15th player. You had Darren Collison talking about his character. You had Nate McMillan saying this is one of the most positive guys on our team. This is from your best player. And then we transitioned to his work on the court, which has been, unbelievable in this last 2 or 3 years. I looked at his stat. He's second in clutch moments. I'm not a big analytical guy, but clutch moments mean when it's winning time. He's averaging about 5 points in clutch moments and shooting an absurd 63%. So this is when you really get it done. I look at guys in clutch moments and their playoff numbers, and Victor Oladipo
Smitty, he wasn't a shooter. He wasn't a shooter.
Nope.
And the dude worked his way into becoming a shooter, and his game opened up.
You have to, obviously, all of our prayers with Victor Oladipo, and I think now the Pacers will try and rally around something.
I vote on @NBA TV until noon on Friday. No, not yet. Give me a chance. I'm here doing the segment now. When do you want me to vote?
My bad.
I don't have a device on me. Give me a chance.
You don't have your phone. I'm sorry.
No. After the segment, I'll go and vote. Who you got?
This is difficult because I think you run into the argument of what defines athleticism. Is it explosive, get off the floor,
right?
Ability?
We're here to overthink this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take this to the deep end of the pool here. Right. But I got to be honest with you. As explosive as Russ is, and as marvelous as LeBron's athleticism has been for so long, Giannis is the largest guy in this category in terms of a graceful athlete.
Freakish, you might say.
To me, well, he's been called something like that. But to me, a lot of it is about how efficient are you with the ball underneath you and with the game underneath you in terms of can you get up and down the floor at your size and dominate in all the different ways that he has shown us he can this year. When you're that height, when you're 7 feet tall basically, and 14 feet long from fingertip to fingertip or whatever, that to me connotates a certain type of athleticism that the average man can't muster.
Sure.
Russ, to me, is the most explosive by position in the entire league. You talk about a guy, a furious athleticism that can overwhelm people. LeBron is probably the most well-rounded, but the best and the one with the highest ceiling in this category to me is Giannis.
I'm going to go with the old head in LeBron. And part of it is most athletic. I've never seen a guy in the 16th season this athletic that can still do the things that he does. And part of being a great athlete is your ability to utilize that athletic ability with your mind. And I don't know that we've ever seen as good a combination of athletic prowess and intellectual understanding and capacity of how to play the game as LeBron. So I would go with him in that category for that. Now, Giannis is freakish, as is Westbrook. But I just think, too, being a great athlete, we're in the business of winning. He's won the most.
That's absolutely true.
I think that does, because you can have all that ability in the world, but if you're not getting to a level where that athletic ability says you should get to, then that, to me, gets discounted a little bit.
Well, to me, that gets into a different category of just overall players, not just athlete, which is the question.
Well, these are three athletes.
They are three great athletes. To me, of the three at this moment in time, I'm going with Russell Westbrook, who is as freakish as anybody in the league.
Yes,
and when you think of explosion, and that's often what people kind of default to when they think of athleticism, there's just nobody as explosive. That dunk last night at the end of the game against Portland, that was absurd, and you saw people getting out of the way. This guy could have been an NFL safety. He could have been who knows what else.
Maybe a defensive end.
In pro sports, I mean, strong safety.
But to me, that's always been the dilemma about athleticism. Is it,
right, what is that?
Yeah, what does it entail? Like, is the guy who would be the most versatile of these guys? Because I think LeBron clearly could have been a professional in several different
disciplines. Sure, lots of things, yeah.
So you think about that, but man, could you imagine Giannis or Russell Westbrook playing volleyball? Or playing another sport where they could use.
I can't go volleyball.
Talents.
There ain't that much money in it. I don't think they would have won.
But they could have dominated.
I don't mean just how much money you get.
I'm just teasing.
But I mean, you think about that, the versatility of your athleticism, and then instinctual athleticism. Like LeBron, to me, is off the charts when it comes to athletic instincts. I don't remember a guy, maybe since Michael Jordan, being that instinctual with his athleticism in terms of timing and knowing how to, make plays on both ends of the floor all over the court the way LeBron does.
And if you want to include longevity, reliability, he goes into that. I know he's hurt right now, but he goes into that category as well. That's always been one of my arguments for Kareem as the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Guy played into his 40s. He was unbelievable all that time.
There's no question.
And started.
Right, vote on NBA TV. Again, Isaiah and the old school guys will tell you they had him at the top of the scouting report deep into his 30s.
Yeah.
Crunch time coming up at 9 Eastern time. All the big finishes from a big Wednesday night. Take a look at Joel Embiid and try to assess whether you think he's going to play tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. He's been great when he's been out there. 20 or more points in 16 straight games.
too spectacular against the Rockets the other day.
20 times, 30 and 10 this season for Embiid. So, Ben Simmons is going to play tonight.
He's pretty good.
I'm saying he's really good. He's just unsure tonight about his availability. Simmons will play. He's dealing with an illness, but he's going to go. And Jimmy Butler will sit out again because of that sore wrist. They take on the San Antonio Spurs, who come in having lost 3 of their last 5. They blew out the Sixers in their first meeting back in San Antonio. What a little more than halfway through the season, what have you seen about the Sixers that you like? What questions would you still like answered?
Well, I mean, look, I think there's still a team that's doesn't shoot it as well from the perimeter as you'd like, if you're talking about them being a contender. But Joel Embiid is so good. He was so good against Houston the other day. If you could take a player and ride him in his game through the playoffs, they've got one of the handful of guys to me in the league that if Embiid gets in that bag and really starts playing at a high level in the postseason, I don't know how you'd stop him. I don't know what another team would do to take him away completely to prevent him from being effective.
No doubt about it, other than go look at the blueprint that the Boston Celtics put forth last year. Like, what gets lost in all of this sometimes is because these young, incredibly talented players show us their ceiling, we forget how important experience is in the postseason.
Sure.
And when you play in a regular season, I don't game plan. We just kind of talk about what we want to try and do against you, but we don't drill it. We don't have tendencies. We don't have a book on you, and we're not on the same schedule. When you get in the postseason now, I get an opportunity. I remember playing for Pat Riley my rookie year. After the season, we're getting ready for the playoffs, and the assistant coach brought me a book. And I was like, damn, I didn't know what it was a book of every player, every play they ran that season. Every play. So everything they had ever done on that court. So you knew every tendency.
Right.
You knew what they'd go to when things got tight. You knew the plays they were going to run. And so that's why I always say in the postseason, that's why you need great players in the postseason. Because great players can score against great defense consistently. And great talents can score, but they need the experience. Now, last year will help him and Ben Simmons because, it showed them as much as we thought and were ready to anoint, they weren't quite ready.
No, end of the game execution was terrible.
It was not very good.
And also couldn't get loose the way they needed.
And the pressure of the moment.
That's when they had more shooters.
Yeah, and it was also the pressure of the moment. Because what happens is they'd never been in those situations before, ever.
Right.
They'd never, in their careers, they'd never been in situations where they felt a little unsure, where they weren't, comfortable with who they were as a player at that level because they'd never had anybody be able to make them do things they didn't want to do. And so that's why that postseason, that experience will help them. But their growth, I think, is coming. The question for me, big picture, is, okay, is the depth going to be there? Because as good as those guys are, you're still going to have guys coming off your bench that can give you quality minutes, that can make big plays. And that's where those veteran guys. Last year, to Sekou's point, they had a better overall roster, even though this one has more top-level talent than they did. To have the Bellinellis and guys like that,
Ilyasova, and who they got for nothing.
Yeah, those veteran guys that you can trust in big moments to make plays. Not having those guys is a concern.
They'll see Bellinelli tonight for San Antonio. By the way, Joel Embiid will play, we are now told.
Oh, good.
For the 76ers.
I got my league pass already set up.
Because the end of the game execution was a serious issue for them against the Celtics. How much of a difference will Butler make in that he's likely to have the ball in his hands a lot in those late game situations?
It will make it. And listen, in all fairness, Brett Brown's got to take some responsibility too. I remember you and I were working during the regular season last year, and we had a couple times in the game situations where I didn't know what the hell they had tried to draw up and run. It was so as much as we want to put it on the players, Brett Brown and his staff have to take some responsibility. I don't think they handle in the games. That Celtic game where his team was imploding in the second quarter last year in the postseason, in the game they were up big, he didn't call a timeout. He just basically let it go, and they ended up losing that game in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And again, he's got to be able to help that young group with his ability to give them stuff that they feel confident in when they have to go out and execute.
Let me interrupt for just a second because Victor Oladipo apparently has